Hello everyone, welcome to the classes, to the biology classes. Today the topic for today's session will be the life processes. Okay, so before we go into the topic of what is life processes, we all know that every individual does the basic necessity process in our life, right? Like eating, then running, then working, then digestion, respiration. All these are the life processes. So when you try to know the definition, it is very simple. So the basic performance, the basic life performed, which is performed by all the living organisms to maintain their life on earth, is called as the life processes. Okay, so the basic function, it's every individual must have this basic function, right? So a normal individual will have all this basic function. So the basic function which is performed by all the living organisms, not only the human beings, but right from the birds, right from the animals, the fishes, and the microorganisms, each and every living organisms, to maintain a sustainable life on earth is called as a life processes. Okay, so when you take the life processes can be divided under three heads. Okay, the first one will be the nutrition, the second one will be the interaction, and finally the reproduction. Okay, so what is nutrition is? So every one of us need food to survive, right? So it goes like this. So the process of taking in of food and converting the food, okay, and converting the food into energy and biomolecules, which is necessary to perform the various body functions, and that is called as the nutrition. Okay, I repeat again. So what is nutrition is the process of taking the food inside and converting, okay, the body itself will convert the food into energy and the biomolecules. When you talk about the biomolecules, it's glucose, it's amino acids and all that. So all this which is necessary for carrying out the various function in our body, and that is called as the nutrition. Okay, so what is interaction? The next one, it's also one of the basic necessary process in the living organism. So what is interaction is? So interaction is nothing but the living organisms are essential to maintain the ecological stability on the earth. Okay, that is the organism which depends on the environment for the support. Okay, so if you take, I can give you a specific example. I can give you the human beings, right? The human being cannot only adapt only in colder region. Okay, he should have a little bit of sunlight. He should experience a little bit of rain. Okay, all these environmental and ecological factor must stabilize the human's life and behavior. Okay, so the living organisms are very essential, right, to maintain what? The ecological stability on the earth, and that is called as the interaction. The next one is reproduction. So as all of you know, the reproduction is nothing but it's a biological process, right? It's a biological process of a living organism to produce the offsprings. What is offsprings? Maybe their generation. Okay, to be very frank and to be very clear enough, offsprings are nothing but their own kind, to produce their own kind of individual, and that is called as the reproduction. So this is the main basic function of a life processes of a living organisms. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, so the next one, all living organisms move, right? Yes, you all agree with that, right? Even the plants move. And you all wonder why, how the plants move. Of course, the plant will respond to the environmental situation. Supposing if you keep a planted pot, maybe inside your house, inside your dark room, the plant will grow towards the light. That is called as a phototropism. That's everybody of us know. Even in your lower classes, you would have learned what is phototropism, what is geotropism, and what is chemotropism and all that, right? So photo means light, right? The plant will try to move, or it will try to towards, the growth will be towards the sunlight. So even when you keep it inside, it will move, right? It will just, maybe it will be climber with the tendrils, it will move towards the sunlight, and that processes, I can tell you, it is the photosynthesis. This is also one of the movement in the plants. And one more example also I can quote here. The sunflower. When you take the sunflower, it's so beautiful to see, and all of us admire the sunflower, right? So you must know some of the characteristic features of a sunflower too. The sunflower will turn, maybe a slight turn towards the sun. When it sees the rays, maybe the sunlight rays, it turns itself. Not a big turn, but just a small turn. Response in light. Okay, this is also one of the movement. And when the sun sets in, okay, when the sun goes down, the sunflower will put its head down, literally, like just it will go down. So this is the response of a plants. Okay, so the living cells, when you take about the cells and tissues, what is a cell? The cell is a basic and the structural unit of a living body, right? So without the cells, the multiplication of the cell will not happen, right? And the tissues, what is a tissue? The mass of cells together is called as a tissue. So the cells as well as the tissue together helps in the life processes. Okay, now let's see the functions. Okay, how the lifestyle, or how the life processes comprises with the following functions. Okay, as I told you, the first part will be the nutrition. So what is nutrition? The process of converting the food, taking in the food and converting it into energy, where the biomolecules use it for the various function, and that is called as the nutrition. So after you eat, what happens? Why do we eat? Just to enjoy? Okay, that's secondary. But the second process will be the respiration. Only if you eat, you can respire. Imagine when you don't eat, what will happen? Maybe you will not be able to breathe in, and the respiration will be stopped there, right? So the respiration is a second biological life processes, and it is a very, very important process in the human beings. Okay, what is a respiration is? The respiration, it's nothing but it's a metabolic process. Okay, it's a metabolic process where the living cells and the organisms, I repeat, where the living cells and the organisms, they obtain energy. How do they obtain the energy? From the ATPs. What are the ATPs are? The ATPs are nothing but the adenine triphosphate molecules. I repeat, ATP is adenine triphosphate molecules. So they obtain the energy from the ATP by taking what? By taking the oxygen and by liberating the CO2. When you take the human beings, right? I'm talking about the human beings right now, and also about the little minute creatures and little small insects and birds and animals and so on and so forth. So here we take in what? We take in the oxygen from the air and liberate. Liberate means what? To give out. Liberate the CO2 from our body, which is the CO2 is produced in the tissues. So the tissues has to liberate the CO2 because CO2 is not needed for respiration. We need only oxygen, right? So we take in the oxygen and leave out the CO2. But when you compare the same process to that of a plants, it's not that same. Okay, so the oxygen which is present in the plants is liberated out, and the plants take in what? CO2. So this is the respiratory process in both plants as well as in animals. Okay, so excretion. So all of us know the next process will be the excretion. As soon as you eat, you respire, you eat, and after you eat, it will, the unwanted food particles, the body which does not require, or the waste part of the food is sent out, or it is ingested out through the process of respiration. Through the process of excretion. Sorry. Okay, and the next one will be the growth and repair. Of course, since we said the cell is very it is very a systematic and a functional unit of our body, I told you already. So it helps in the growth of an organisms, and also it will repair and own out the dead cells and the dead tissues, right? It will give energy to the cells. So the growth and repair mechanisms. So this is the life processes and the functions of the living organisms and plants. The next one will be the nutrition. So as I already told you, the process is nothing but taking in of food. Okay, taking in of food is the nutrition. And why do we take in food? Not only to relish the meal, but also our body requires to build. Okay, the building up of the body for the growth and for the maturity, nutrition is needed. Supposing we don't take in a nourished food. Nowadays, I think how many of us are taking nourished food, we just hardly can count. But every one of us depends upon the processed food. But that's totally wrong. And we are traveling to that only. But as we are learning science and technology, we must also know the hazards of eating all those processed food. It's totally bad for your health. Okay, so taking a nutritious food, a balanced food, will help you to build the body, not only for the growth, but also to build the body with proper amino acids, with carbohydrates, with minerals and vitamins, and so on. Okay, and not only that, not only to build, but also it will repair the damaged parts, especially the cells. Okay, the cells will undergo some damage, but it will renew the cells. It will renew the cells and it will give energy to the body. So these are the main functions of the nutrition. Okay, now let's see into the next part, which is the modes of nutrition. What is the mode of nutrition? Of course, when you take the modes of nutrition, you can categorize into two heads. One will be the autotrophic nutrition and the heterotrophic nutrition. So what are autotrophic nutrition? Autotrophic nutrition are nothing but the plants who can prepare their own food. They don't depend on any other source. Okay, maybe they prepare their own food. Okay, they are capable of preparing their own food through the process of photosynthesis. They only require the sunlight. Of course, the CO2, soil, water, all that, these are the factors for the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so that is the meaning of photosynthesis, autotrophs. So green plants, they'll prepare their own food in the process of sunlight, and they are also called as the producers. Since they prepare their own food, they are called as the producers. Okay, so I can tell you all the green plants, algae, fungi, lichens, all these comes under the category of the plant kingdom, and they prepare their own food. Right? So the next category will be the heterotrophic nutrition. The heterotrophs, hetero means something which depends on the other source for nutrition. Okay, and here the the organisms, what do is that they do not prepare their own food. In heterotrophic nutrition, the organism, they don't prepare their own food, rather they depend on the other organisms for food, and that is called as the heterotrophs. Okay, and some of the heterotrophs would be man, the animals, and all that. We all depend something. Supposing if you wanted to eat some greens, some green vegetables, again you depend on plants, right? So you depend some or the other way. You rely on the other source. Okay, and that's called as the heterotrophic nutrition. And of course, the heterotrophic nutrition can be divided under three categories. Right? The first category will be the holozoic nutrition. When you talk about the holozoic nutrition, what is the holozoic nutrition is? Holozoic nutrition, I can give you an example. Before I could start it, I'll give an example of what an holozoic nutrition is. Amoeba. Amoeba is a single, that is, it's a unicellular organism. All of us know, and it does not have a definite shape. right? Now here, this amoeba takes the food as in the form of liquid or solid, and then it breaks down, and then the food gets broken down into simpler forms, and the example will be the amoeba. Okay, the next one will be the saprophytes. The saprophytes are nothing but these organisms. Okay, when you take all these saprophytic organisms, the food is consumed in the form of dead and decayed matter. That means food is relied on the decomposed part of, okay, the food. These organisms, they rely on the decomposed part. The dead and decayed organisms only it will live on. It will not live on the organisms with full of life. It will, that's why it is said, even when immediately, supposing a cat dies or a dog dies, immediately after 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours, you can't even stand there, right? Immediately what will happen? The biological process, the chemical process will take place from in a dead cat or a dead dog, and the maggots will start producing, okay, the worms. So what happens that when it produces that maggots, that is the first stage of decomposition. So there, these organisms, this saprophytes, the food is consumed in the dead and the decayed form, and that is called as a saprophytes. I can tell you an example as tapeworm, the tapeworm and the plasmodium. All these, they depend upon this source. The next one will be the parasitic nutrition. What is parasitic nutrition? So this organism, here also the organisms will live on or inside the body of their host, okay, and feed on them. That is called as a parasitic nutrition. So I can give you the best example, an ectoparasite, that's a lice. Ecto means what? Which lives outside the body. So especially in our heads, right? Some of us will have the ectoparasite. So what will happen? It will be in your head, it will not cause you death and all, but it will consume, it will suck the blood from the scalp, and it will be there with you until you live, until you survive. Till your lifetime, it will be with you. So that is called as the parasite. So it will be, sometimes the parasites will be inside also, the worms, all that will be with, sometimes it's inside the intestine. Okay, some parasites like the lice and all I told you, no, the louse, it is an ectoparasite because it lives outside the body, especially in the head region, the hair follicles. Okay, so here it depends, it lives on outside of the body, and it depends on the host, and it feeds the blood from the organism. So this is called as the parasitic nutrition. Okay, now here are the pictures which shows the saprophytic, the saprophytes are nothing but the examples will be, I told you that it lives on dead and decayed matter. I told you the mushrooms, the molds, the bread molds, all these are the organisms which rely on the dead and decayed part. The parasitic, I told you, okay, inside the parasitic nutrition is outside. Ectoparasite I can tell you as the louse, and the parasite which lives inside, the endoparasites, I can tell you as the tapeworm, the Plasmodium vivax. All this comes under this category. And the holozoic nutrition, the first nutrition I told you, it is nothing but this is the amoeba, right? The amoeba, what happens? It takes the food in form of a liquid, and after the digestion takes place in the food vacuole, that is the leftover food, or the unabsorbed food is sent outside the body. It's thrown out outside the body of the amoeba, and that type of nutrition is called as a holozoic nutrition. Fine. The next one will be the nutrition in plants. Of course, you can see the picture, the photosynthesis, right? So what do you mean by the photosynthesis? So you can see here the leaves. What does the leaves does? The leaves takes in what? It takes the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, right? The leaves take the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they release the oxygen which is present inside the plant. Inside them, it releases the oxygen which is present. Okay, so immediately what happens? The next step will be the plants. When you take about the plants they observe, they take in water. When you pour the water, especially in the root nodules in the ground. So when you pour the water or any other type of nutrition to the plant, so here what happens, the leaves will absorb the water and minerals from the soil, especially by the roots. It not only absorbs water, but also the minerals needed for the growth of the plant. So as it absorbs the roots from the ground area, the water enters to the stem region. Okay, as it enters the stem region, okay, when it reaches the leaves and all leaves, what happens? The external source, the sunlight gives chloroplast. Okay, now what is this chloroplast? This chloroplast is present in the chlorophyll, the leaf, in the leaf part of the region of the plants. So in the leaf part you have the chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is nothing but green pigments. Now this green pigment is a very, very important pigment. Just like how the human beings have the pigment, the red pigment in the body is nothing but the RBCs. It gives oxygen to ourselves. Now that blood, we are not able to survive, and we could not survive also, because blood does humorous and multifarious functions. Just like that, this leaves also, the leaves consist of chlorophyll, it's a green pigment, and that sunlight gives chloroplast. Okay, chloroplast, which helps to produce energy. Okay, it helps to give energy. Why? To produce the sugar. In plant, sugar is nothing but the food. And this process, this complete process is called as the photosynthesis. Okay. Next one. Okay, let's see the equation. Okay, before that, this is the equation. So with the presence of sunlight and having the leaf, the chlorophyll, so the carbon dioxide plus water will give you 6 molecules of carbon and 12 water, and oxygen 6 plus, with the help of oxygen it can produce. So CO2 plus H2 gives rise to C6H12O6 plus the oxygen which is liberated. Okay, next one, process of photosynthesis. Okay, so long we were seeing what is photosynthesis and what are the necessary activities and functions which is performed by the plant. Now what is the process? What happens here? So the absorption, what is absorption is to take light. Okay, the taking in of light especially by the leaves is done by the chlorophyll. Just now I was saying about the chlorophyll. So the light energy is taken by the chlorophyll, and this light energy is converted into a chemical energy. Not only a light energy, but it is converted into the chemical energy. Now you may ask, what is that chemical energy? It's nothing but the splitting. Okay, the splitting of the water molecules. The splitting of the water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, So the carbon dioxide, what is the function of the carbon dioxide? The carbon dioxide is reduced. Okay, the carbon dioxide is reduced by the hydrogen to produce the carbohydrates. So this is the process of the photosynthesis. Okay, the next part, we are going to the next part, which is the chlorophyll. So I was telling about the chlorophyll, right? So where is this chlorophyll? So again, I'll just give you a small explanation of what this chlorophyll is. Okay, so the green plants, the green pigments, as I told you, human beings also has the red pigment called the hemoglobin, which gives a red coloration, and also it carries the oxygen for the breathing process. Just like that, the same way in green plants also. The green pigments are present in the leaves of a plant. Okay, and how do you examine this chlorophyll? Simple, it's very, very simple. Just take a leaf, you dissect it, maybe you give a cross section. Just you can see the picture over here, you can see the cross section, right? And once if you've done the cross section, you need to observe it under the microscope. So what do you find? You find, you can see the third picture over here, there are many dots over, right? There are many dots, green dots like structure, and that green dot like structure is the chloroplast. And what do they contain? They contain the chlorophyll. Why do they contain chlorophyll? Because they have to carry out the photosynthetic process, and that is a reason they contain the chlorophyll. So the green pigments which is present in the leaves of a plant is called as a chlorophyll, right? Okay. So please do this cross section with the guidance from your teacher or what. Please don't do it alone. Do it in a proper laboratory, okay, where you have the microscopic observation. There you can do it. Next one will be the stomata. So as the picture, I'm just showing the picture where you can find the stomata. Just take a leaf, okay, it can be any leaf for that matter. Just take a leaf, and the epidermis, the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis are there, no? The first part and the second part of the leaf. Maybe in the epidermis, under the epidermis, the lower part of the leaves has many tiny pores. If you examine through the microscope or a lens, you can find the pore exactly like this, okay, and that is called as a stomata. Now what is the stomata? Now, the stomata is nothing but the cell structure. It is a cell structure which is present on the epidermis of a leaf. And what does it do? It involves in the exchange of CO2 and water between the plants and the atmosphere. I repeat again. So, what is the stomata? This is nothing but the cell structure which is present on the epidermis of a leaf. And what is the function of that? It helps. The main function of the stomata is that it involves the process of exchange of gases, diffusion of gases, especially the gases like CO2 and water between the plants and the animals. And without this stomata, the exchange of gas is not possible. So stomata opening this is the main function of the stomata. Okay. So the next one will be the stomata. So the stomata can be, you can classify into two, not exactly classify, you can divide it into two. One will be the open stomata and closed stomata. Okay. Now this stomata is normally seen in the leaf and on the under surface. I told you the lower epidermis, I told you, right? So that is the under surface they are saying. Okay, and how it is seen? It is seen as a minute pore. Only if you examine under the microscope, you can see the opening or closing. Okay, so each stomatal opening stomata is guarded by a pair of guard cells. So you can see two definite and distinct images here, right? So you can see some pair, right? A pair, one and here, one and two, one and two. Okay, so this is nothing but a pair of guard cells. It's a pair of guard cells. Now, what is the function of the guard cell? So, normally when you see, it is a pair of epidermal cells. This guard cell is nothing but a pair of the epidermal cells. Now, the second function will be it controls, okay, it controls the diffusion of gases. It controls the diffusions of gases. How does it control? By regulating the opening and the closing of stomata. I repeat, by regulating the opening and the closing of the stomata. Suppose, now you may ask a doubt, how it is possible? I'll tell you the reason. So, the normal opening, the opening of the guard cells is normally seen in the daytime, and you will not see during the night time. You know why? Because, as you know, the leaves of the plant will always depend on the sunlight, I told you, for photosynthesis. So only if the sunlight is on, only if the sunlight is there, this guard cell will open during the daytime, because it needs the exposure from the sunlight. It needs light. Without the light, it won't open. But whereas in the night, sunlight is not there, sun is not there, so the guard cell also will not open. So this is the way to remember the stomatal opening and closing. Okay, and during the night time, I told you, the guard cells are seen to be closed. It's shrunk. You can see it's shrunken here. Okay, whereas here in the morning it is swollen. The first picture you can see it's swollen. The second picture is shrunken. Okay, and it leads to the very little exchange of gases during the night. Okay, so this is about the stomata. Okay, so the next one, here's a simple activity. I'm just giving you a small activity to check the chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. Okay, first you take a leaf, maybe the middle part of the leaf, you can maybe as shown in the picture, you can just cover it with a black paper or a black strip. Next, the green plants, as you know, the green leaf is always attached to the plant. Just take one leaf out of it. Okay, so the plant will be tested, okay, with the exposure to the sunlight. Okay, and the next process is that you have to boil the leaf. You can see the next picture using a water bath. Now all this experiment should be carried out in laboratory. Okay, so all this experiment should be done under the supervision of your teacher, not to be done alone. Okay, and here having the spirit lamp here, take the funnel with full of water and the test tube with the leaf, a tested leaf, and of course the test tube should have the ethanol. Okay, and here what happens is you have to boil the water well. So okay, so as to remove the chlorophyll. Once if you boil it, the chlorophyll will be removed. Okay, and to that leaf, once after it cools down, just take out the leaf, and you can see somewhat the color change. You can notice the decolorization of the leaf. Okay, now to that you can add 2 drops or 3 drops of iodine solution. Okay, so a starch test with iodine solution. Test the leaf with the starch for presence of starch with using the iodine solution. Okay, so here what happens, the part which you had covered with the black strip has no starch in it, and since it remained the same, only the color has changed but there's no starch. But here the other leaves which was exposed, okay, will be in blue color, and this is indication that the starch is present in the leaf, and this test proves that chlorophyll is necessary for the process of photosynthesis. Right? Okay. Next one, nutrition in animals. When you talk about animals, amoeba is also a living organism, and according to biology we say it as an animal. Okay, it does not have eyes, or it does not have horns, or it does not walk, but even then biologically we say it as an animal. Okay, a water animal. Okay, when you talk about this amoeba does not have a definite shape, and it's a unicellular organism, right? And this amoeba has some false leg, and that false foot is called as the pseudopodia. Okay, now what is the pseudopodia? So you can see all this, all here. You can see the like tail-like structures all over the body of the amoeba, and of course the nucleus is in the center. Okay, the food is captured. The food is captured by the pseudopodia. Okay, so once the food is captured, a food vacuole is formed inside the body of the amoeba, and with the help of cytoplasm inside the body, the food is taken inside. Okay, the food is inside, and you can see the food vacuole also. Okay, so after that the digestion takes place. I told you in amoeba that the food will always be taken in form of liquids. It will be like liquids, and sometimes in solids. Not the solids what we eat, like it will be to a maximum of little bit, that's all, but mostly in part of liquids. Okay, so the food will be taken and the food will be digested there, and after the process of digestion, the undigested part is removed out. Okay, the digested part is taken inside the amoeba, and the undigested part is egested out, or it is thrown out with the help of the pseudopodia. It just comes out of the body. So this is the nutrition which is noted in amoeba, especially in animals. Okay, the next one will be the nutrition in human beings, and this is very, very important. Okay, so when you talk about the nutrition in human beings, the food what you eat at the first step, okay, taking enough food will be what? Will be egestion. So the food what you take in is a complex substance. The complex, it can be anything. It can be your favorite delicacies. It can be any food. So you take that food, right? you take that food, and that food is in the form of complex substance. This complex substance will be broken out into simpler forms, and that process is called as digestion. Of course, when you take digestion, the digestion can be divided under, the digestive process can be divided under 4 heads. One will be, the first part will be the ingestion. The taking in of food is called as the ingestion. Next, the food what you take in will be in the form of complex substance. This complex substance will be broken down into simpler form, and that is called as the digestion. The next one will be absorption. So the food what you take in is now digested, okay, and this is taken by the cells, and it will also have some micronutrients. Okay, it will have some, the food what you already add will be broken down into simpler forms to get the micronutrients, and this process is called as, the cell will absorb the micronutrients. Why? For the cellular activity, for breathing, for eating, for running, for jogging, for all the physical activities. And the next part will be the assimilation. This nutrients, macronutrients, is taken by the cells, is sent into the bloodstream for the purpose of organic substances, like for the conversion of the organic substance like glucose, amino acids, proteins, so on and so forth. So this is the first 4 important categories of digestion. Okay, and the next one will be the digestion. Now we have come to the exact part of digestion. What is this digestion is? This digestion can be divided under 2 heads. One will be chemical digestion and mechanical digestion. Okay, so what is mechanical digestion is? So mechanical digestion is nothing but you masticate the food well in your mouth. Okay, the mastication of food is done well in your mouth, and that is called as the chewing of food is called as the mastication, and that is the mechanical part of the food. Some work is given to your mouth. Okay, the next one is chemical digestion. When you talk about the chemical digestion, enzymes, the gastric juices plays a very important role, especially when you talk about the enzymes. The saliva consists of what? The salivary amylase. Okay, the salivary glands produces saliva, and this saliva consists of the salivary amylase. And what is the function of the salivary amylase? It will make the food soft. The food what you eat in, it will make the food soft, and that is the main function of the salivary amylase. Okay, so this is the 2 different types of function. Of course, the teeth also is one of the important organ here, necessary important organ, because the chewing of the food without the teeth is not possible, right? Of course, there are about 4 different types of teeth. The incisors, okay, then you have the canines, then you have the molars and the premolars and the molars. Incisors, the term itself says scissors. It will cut the food. The food what you eat in, it will cut the food. And what is the next? Next one is canines. Canines will tear the food. Any type of food, it will tear the food. The premolars for grinding the food. And finally, the molars or the wisdom tooth for crushing and grinding the food. So these are the functions of the 4 different types of teeth. That is also helps in the process of digestion. Okay, and of course the tongue. The tongue also is one of the superb. It's a beautiful organ, and also it aids a support in digestion. The floor of a tongue has many structures, papillary structures called the taste buds. If you can relish the food today, okay, you can order the food. If you can relish the food, any type of a food, that is because of your taste buds. So the taste buds it's also one of the sensory receptor. Tongues are the sensory receptor because of that process. Because it has the taste buds, it will help in tasting the food. Okay, so this is these are the main organs. So it starts from the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the liver, the pancreas, the gallbladder, the small intestine, and the large intestine. All these comprises of the alimentary system of the human being. Okay, so the next one will be the mouth. I already told you this. When you take about the mechanical digestion, the teeth helps in breaking the food, I told you, and I told you 4 different types of teeth. You can see the pictures also here. The incisors, the canines, the premolars, and finally the molars, right? And of course the tongue. Okay. The chemical digestion, I told you, the saliva, especially the salivary amylase, helps to soften the food, and also this enzymes digest any type of starch. What is starch is? The complex substance of sugar is called as a starch. Okay. Next, when you take the digestion in stomach, as you see, the stomach is a muscular organ, a bag-like structure. So any type of food what you eat, it requires about 3 to 4 hours, after which only the digestion will start. Depends upon the food what you eat. Supposing when you eat a protein food, maybe a fibrous food, or a food which is rich in proteins, and maybe after 4 hours or 3 hours, the digestion process will start. That is why it is said that you have to finish your meal, your dinner, everything correctly. Must not postpone it, because you can postpone easily, but your stomach cannot accept that, because as I explained, I will tell you, your stomach already produces the HCl, the hydrochloric acid. Now that hydrochloric acid will make the acid level high in your stomach if you don't eat. Okay, so this stomach is also a bag-like structure, and normally the main function of the stomach is to store the food. Okay, so once the food is stored, maybe after 2 to 3 hours, the food passes to the next part, which is called as the esophagus, the long tube-like structure. You can see in this previous slide also, you can see you can see this. Okay, so it's a long tube-like structure, and the food is digested chemically by what? How it is done? By the salivary amylase, I told you. And also, the walls of the stomach consist of some important glands. And what is that gland called as? The gland is called as the gastric glands. Okay, what does this gastric glands does? The gastric glands will secrete the gastric juices. And normally, this gastric juices consist of 2 important enzymes. Okay, it consists of the enzymes called the pepsin and the renin, and also the hydrochloric acid, which is called as the HCl. What is the main function of this HCl? Why should this HCl be in our body? The main function is that any type of food you are eating, right? You are taking the food from the street food, or maybe from any type of restaurant, or sometimes you might yourself will not be aware of the organisms which is present in the food. So, but you may not know, but your stomach will analyze that, because it produces the HCl. This HCl, what happens? It will kill the germs, any type of a germs which is present in the body, and the next function will be, it will soft the food. Okay, it will soften the food. Of course, I told you the 2 enzymes, renin and retin. The renin helps to curdle the milk. If you are eating a protein, maybe the milk, or maybe a large stuff of milk, it will help to curdle the milk, and the pepsin will act on the protein food. The food, supposing if you are eating a proteinous food, it will act on that protein, and it will undergo a breakdown process, and these pepsin will be converted into peptones. This pepsin will be converted into peptones. So after that, there is a movement in our stomach, and that movement is called as a peristalsis movement. So what is peristalsis? It is nothing but the food has to move, right? The food has to reach the digestive tract. For that, the movement is needed, and that movement in the alimentary canal is called as a peristalsis. So the peristalsis movement together with the bolus. What is bolus? It is nothing but the food mixed along with the saliva. That is called as bolus. So in peristalsis, the bolus, the food along with the mixture of saliva, is converted into chyme. What is chyme is? Chyme is a liquid, undigested part, a semi-digested part. Okay, after 4 hours of the mechanical and chemical digestion. Now this chyme, this undigested or partly mixed food, it passes through the sphincter, and that sphincter called as the pyloric sphincter, and it enters the small intestine. Okay, the next one will be the small intestine. The main function of the small intestine is It helps in absorption and digestion. The main function is absorption and digestion. Of course, when you take the small intestine, okay, so this is the small intestine, especially the small one which is like folds, okay. This small folds has many lining and finger-like projection, okay, and that is called as the villi. Before I could go into the villi, I'll tell you three important structures. This small intestine opens into a U-shaped tube called as the duodenum. It's highly coiled, okay, it's a highly coiled region, and it is a U-shaped structure called as a duodenum. After this duodenum is a coiled region, right? The coiled region is called as the ileum. Okay, the coiled region is the coiled region will be the ileum. And before this ileum, you have a little more coiled region, and that is called as the jejunum. The jejunum, and next one will be the ileum. When you talk about the ileum, the walls of the stomach, walls of the small intestine of the stomach has some glands also. One such important gland will be the Brunner's gland. What is this Brunner's gland? The main function of the Brunner's gland is to secrete the mucus and the enzymes needed for the absorption and digestion. Okay, and inside this small intestine, especially the ileum as ileum mucosa. Mucosa normally helps in the it's a lubricant agent. Your eye has some mucus secreting. Your nose, sometimes if you cold, mucus is there. The nasal region has mucus. Likewise, the digestive part also has the mucus. And of course, inside the inner folds of the intestine, you have many finger-like structures. Just the way you see in the third picture here, finger-like structure, and that finger-like structure is called as the villi. And this villi again is simplified into microvilli. Okay, so here the absorption and digestion takes place with the help of this villi. Okay, the next one, the next part after this is the large intestine. What is this large intestine? So water is absorbed. The main function of the large intestine is it helps in the absorption of water. Absorption of water is taken, and of course the waste materials is also removed from the anal region. From the anal region. Okay. So the bacteria is produces some types of vitamins. It produces some vitamins, and this vitamins is absorbed in the bloodstream, into the bloodstream. So water is absorbed. Water is again reabsorbed. Water is again reabsorbed. Once the water is reabsorbed, okay, the undigested part, okay, the intestine, again when you take about the large intestine, the large intestine can be divided into cecum, okay, colon, the rectum, colon, the rectum, and the anus. Okay, so the rectum part will be the temporary place where the fecal matter is stored. It's a rectum is the temporary place where the fecal matter is stored. So after the complete process of digestion, the digested food material is taken inside the bloodstream. The water is reabsorbed, okay, and the feces is removed from the rectum and passes to the last stage called as the anus. Okay, so this is the total function of the small intestine. Okay, so in today's session, what did we handle in today's session? In today's session, we handled about what is nutrition is, okay, so what is respiration is, and also we saw the different life process activities, okay, and also we saw about the life processes which helps in the interaction, it helps in nutrition and reproduction, okay, and we saw what was photosynthesis. What did we see? The green plants prepare their own food, right, with the help of sunlight, and how this photosynthesis can be again categorized. Okay, it can be nutrition, modes of nutrition, like the holozoic nutrition, saprophytic nutrition, okay, parasitic nutrition, fine, and also this nutrition, this when you talk about this nutrition, it can be divided into autotrophs and heterotrophs. And what is photosynthesis, and what a stomata is, and what are the different two types of stomata, the open stomata and the closed stomata. Okay, and finally the guard cells, how the beautiful opening of the guard cells takes place. Okay, and also the last part, the human digestion. So this is the entire elementary process in the human. Okay, so thank you for your patience and thank you for listening the class. Any doubts, any queries, please you can put comments and ask me your valuable doubts. Okay, so with this I am finishing the first part of the life processes in biology, and meet you soon in the second part. So if you like this video, please subscribe to our channel toxzion.com, share the video, like the video, and of course hit the thumbs up button there. So meet you all soon in the next video. Until then, I'm here signing off. Thank you.